If we've met in person, most likely we were at a dirt track and I was wearing a fire suit. And if we weren't at a dirt track and I wasn't wearing a fire suit, I probably had a welding hood on and I was in a metal shop somewhere. There's a lot of stuff to explain about where I've been and what I've been up to, and yeah, why haven't I been racing? And hopefully, I can answer some of those questions and kind of bring you guys up to speed on who I am, what I do, if you haven't met me before. Welcome to Theron Smith and Speed. Well, we may as well start from the beginning, as most do when they're getting into motorsports. I started in go karts. I didn't do the lay down style go karts, the 206 motors and stuff that you run on road courses. I ran a class called Outlaw Karts. We raced on dirt ovals in Red Bluff, California. We raced at the Roseburg Indoor Track in Oregon, Salem Speedway, places like that. And also a few outdoor tracks, one in Roseburg, one in Medford. And it was the basis for learning car control and basic feedback stuff with what's the car doing, how do you communicate that to your crew chief or your dad at that point. But it was a really great season of learning to start my racing career. I think we did a little bit over 20 races. We got several wins and tons of podiums, so I was really proud with how quickly we got up to speed and were competitive wherever we went on the West Coast. After a season of racing go-karts, my parents wanted to see if I really had what it take to get a full-size car up to speed. So I went to the Corey Cruiseman driver school and did a full-day session with Corey Cruiseman. There was a few other people there, and we were all coached by Corey, and I learned a ton about how to really get a car up to speed. I drove one of his, I believe they were Focus midgets, and he was a great teacher, and I was able to prove myself that I could, put the throttle down and really get a full size car going. So after I attended the driving school, we found a few sponsors and were able to put together a micro sprint team. This is the class that I have the most experience in. I have about 70 odd races under my belt and 2 seasons. I have 2 wins both at Salem Indoor and a couple podiums at places like Deming Speedway and Delta Speedway. I did do a little bit of racing back in the Midwest, just one race, but yeah, a lot of extensive experience with the micro sprints. And I probably met most of you who are watching through micro sprints if we met in person. One thing that kind of sets me apart from most racers that I came up with is the fabrication aspect to my life. My dad owned a metal shop at the time that I was coming up in go-karts, micro sprints, and eventually sprint cars, slowly but surely learning how to do different things in the shop. By the time I was in my second year of micro racing, I was actually building my own bodies for the cars, and I really took a lot of pride in doing that and working with my father to make my own components, and it just made it that much more special that I got to see the result of my work, on the track. And man, I think those car bodies that I built back in the day still look good today. And it just gives me a sense of pride to know that not only did I drive that car well on track, but I also helped put it together and made it look beautiful too. At this point in my career, I had 3 seasons under my belt. I had started at 12 years old racing outlaw karts. I did that for 1 season, and then 13 and 14 years old was dedicated to micro sprints. And near the end of my 14th year, we had decided that it's time for me to move up to sprint cars, and we started acquiring parts and putting stuff together. And around Christmas time, just a couple weeks before my birthday, we realized that we wouldn't be able to financially swing it that year to put together a sprint car for me. But we ended up finding some amazing sponsors, and lo and behold, right at the beginning of the summer season for our local track, we were able to get a sprint car together, and we actually did 10 races before we ended up splitting with the person that helped us put everything together. So it wasn't a full season of sprint car racing, sadly, but I got some really good experience in a big car, and man, those things are wicked fast. And let me tell you, I never got over that feeling of driving a sprint car and just the raw power and the excitement that they give you. It's nothing that can be replicated. Out of the 10 or so races we entered, I think the car only ran 5 or 6 times that we showed up to the track. So I had 2 top 10s and 1 top 5 to show for it, which I'm not really proud of. But then again, I was only 15 years old in a sprint car, just trying to kind of hang on and learn everything as I go. So I think I haven't given myself the credit that I deserve for that time in my life, and I really wish I would have had more seat time at such a young age. I'd probably be pretty good in a sprint car by now if I didn't stop racing sprint cars at 15 and then wait another 3 years to get back into one. But what can you do? After splitting up and selling my sprint car operation, I kind of had a little bit of self doubt creep in about my ability and the future of my career because up to this point, I really felt like I was on the fast track with everything. Everyone else that was around me was getting into sprint cars, at 15 years old, and then eventually winning races by the time they were, 16, 17, 18. And a lot of those kids that I was racing with now are, not to brag, but they're on the national level of sprint cars, and even a few of them are now in NASCAR and beyond. So it kind of was a punch in the gut to not be able to progress with my friends that I'd grown up racing go-karts and micro sprints with, but I needed to adjust and regain my self-confidence. Age 16 was kind of sporadic for me. I traveled with a ASCS team for a few months and got to see some of the tracks back east and actually see how a nationally competitive team functions, and that was absolutely paramount for me going forward to really build my own career and my own team eventually. After that, I did 2 races in the late summer. I did 1 micro sprint race at Dixon Speedway, which I got a top 10 there out of 30 cars, which was really good considering that I had, only ever done 3 other wingless micro sprint races. And then my first ever midget race I did at Ventura Raceway, and I think there was 12 or 13 cars there, but I ended up finishing second. So I was very proud of those 2 finishes, but I knew I needed to do more races for the next year. I ended up pivoting from dirt racing to road racing when I turned 17. I got my SCCA racing license, and I ended up doing really good my first year. I got 4 podiums, and I got top rookie honors, so I was the best performing rookie in the Spec Miata class that year for the San Francisco region. We raced at Thunder Hill, and we raced at Laguna Seca. I think for some reason Sonoma wasn't on the schedule that year, but I did really well, and I was really happy with my results. I also did, I think, 2 midget races when I was 17, and I didn't finish outside of the top 5 for either of those races either. We raced at Petaluma and Ocean Speedway. Ocean Speedway, I finished 3rd, and Petaluma, I think I got 5th. Back to the metal fabrication side for a minute. So once I turned 18, I went full-time with my dad in the metal shop, seeing projects through start to finish, doing lots of cable railing systems, traditional handrail systems, a few, steel structures like buildings and stuff like that, set pieces for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, anything you can imagine. We fabricated custom, and I learned a ton. I was starting to get proficient at TIG and MIG welding, along with bending, material and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun to really start to, get good at these machines and kind of start learning the lay of the shop. And I was really starting to take a sense of pride in what I had for an inheritance as far as a trade went. So with that being said, I was just about to turn 18, and I was on the cusp of the biggest year for my racing I had ever had, and I would say this is my most successful year and the one I remember the most fondly. I raced 3 different types of cars, and I had really good success in all 3 classes, and we raced all over the West Coast. I started out by racing in Sonoma in February, and I was racing in the Spec Miata class, and I actually ended up getting pole position and winning my first ever Spec Miata race, my first try ever at Sonoma Raceway. The day after that, I ended up finishing 2nd place. I didn't have another set of fresh, slick tires, so I was passed up in the end, but still I was so happy to get that first sports car win, and I really felt like I could become a very versatile driver knowing that I can win on dirt and I can win on asphalt. From there, I actually got a call from a close friend of mine, Ray Stebbins, who owned a Focus Midget team up in Washington. I had finally reached the age where I could enter into the Northwest Focus Midget Series. So I got a few sponsors together, some from the Spec Miata program and a few new ones. And we went on the road to start racing in the Northwest Focus Midget Series. I think I did 10 or 12 races with them that year, and we raced everywhere from Deming, Washington down to Cottage Grove, Oregon. We got a few top 10s. I don't know if we got a top 5 in the midget that year. We had some mechanical issues with the car. Our maintenance program wasn't where it should have been, but I definitely did the best with what I had, and I was very proud to get that, car up near the front. And we got a few pole positions too, I believe, that season. So yeah, just really happy with how we were able to get that car going. After the first few races in our season, I actually had a good friend of mine who was trying to start his own sprint car operation, but I don't know why it never really worked out. He decided to call one of his old friends to try and get me a ride with him, and it ended up working out really well. The guy who I ended up driving for, his name was Bill Lemley, and he's a very well-known sprint car team owner up in the Washington State area around Skagit Speedway. And he ended up hiring me for 10 races. A lot of them were limited sprint races, and we did a few 360 events as well. We got 1 or 2 top 10s and I think 1 top 5, but man, I learned so much racing with Bill. We raced all over Oregon and Washington together, and man, just the adventures we had were so fun. And man, he was so funny. One thing I remember very vividly is we'd be driving his motorhome, and we'd have the race car trailer behind it, and we'd be trying to pull out onto the highway, and there'd just be a line of cars, coming down the highway. And he'd just be sitting there looking, rubbing his chin, and just look back at me and be like, you know what? It's my turn. And just pull out in front of however many cars. And sure enough, they'd stop for him and let him in. So I guess can't argue with that. He sure was crazy sometimes, but man, he could set up that car so good. And it was so confidence inspiring to get support like that, and really just a chance to find my groove in sprint car racing. We won a few heat races along with our top 5 and top 10s, so it really healed all of the confidence that I had lost, with racing a sprint car when I was 15, and finally able to kind of see myself where I thought I ought to be picking up 3 years later in a sprint car. So what happened? I was doing amazing in sprint cars, in midgets, and in sports cars. I had a really good journeyman career kind of starting to come together for myself, and something that I was really proud of, and I am still proud of, but something that was just, ready to be built upon. And it all kind of came crashing down in one winter. All of the opportunities dried up. A lot of situations changed. A lot of my personal life really took a downhill turn, and yeah, I can't really point to one single thing that really stopped my racing, but a lot of it had to do with money, with time, work commitments, and with the commitments and money constraints of the people that I was racing with, and just yeah, pretty much everything dried up like that. And I had a few irons in the fire for the next season, but it all kind of came up for nothing, and I'm sure a lot of racers can identify with that. So I kept my head down, and I kept working in the metal shop and just honing my craft and learning more machines, learning more techniques, and continued on from there. It was pretty heart-crushing not to be able to race for the next season or the season after that, and I put all that frustration into my work and learning new skills, and I kind of channeled it into getting into fabricating, custom components for cars and building stuff for custom cars. I did a few small pieces, like I've rebuilt a trunk for a 1940 Mercury. I'm sure some of you guys have seen that online. I ended up building a show car in 12 days. It was a 1957 Corvette. I did all the fabrication work on it. we put the car on air ride, painted it, and got it running, and took it down to the Santa Maria Cruising Nationals in just 12 days. So that was a really cool accomplishment. That car came out beautiful, and that's a time in my life I'll never forget. I've gotten to do a couple other things, chassis stuff. I've done smaller components to put onto hot rods, and now I'm getting into metal shaping. It's a lot of fun, and it's a whole new world, but I'm up to the challenge, and it kind of seems like the logical next step. And I used all that sadness and negativity to really just push myself and learn everything I can, because the more valuable I can make myself, then the more value I can give back to others. And yeah, I'm going to be doing more custom car work in the future. I actually have something lined up this spring whenever I get back to the West Coast. I'm currently in Wisconsin. I'm in my hotel room right now, and I'm building stainless steel tanks for orange juice, beer, cheese, whatever you can imagine. I build with the help of somebody. We build one 30-foot tall stainless steel tank, and it's a lot of fun to learn a new type of fabrication. And yeah, it's just a crazy thing to be here and have this opportunity. So I'm sure you're wondering why I'm making this video, and there is a reason. I'm not ready to reveal it yet, but things are changing for the better, and I've been working really hard to get to this point. And feel free to leave a guess in the comments if you want to, what you might think it'll be, but it's definitely going to be more car related stuff. I'm going to be doing custom car stuff again, hopefully on a bigger level than I've ever done. And I'm really excited to be working with new people and make more connections in the industry. I love the show car scene. I love the hot rod scene, the nostalgia of it, and just the American dream. That's what I see as the American dream, is building show cars and really, just emphasizing that era of American style. So really excited for that, and excited to make some more announcements in the future. Thank you for watching this video, and I really hope you guys give it a thumbs up, and hopefully subscribe to follow me on my journey. I don't want to just use this channel for my own gain, but I want to, bring up everybody with this channel, and just, draw attention to American car culture, racing culture, and the people that are, behind the scenes and front and center, to, popularize it and give everybody their due for, what they contribute to this amazing world that I get to live in every day of fabrication and racing. So please hit that subscribe button and hit that like button if you want to see more. Have a great day, guys.